y'all, this is a Variety Kid. So as y'all probably know, I got an iPhone 10. People requested that I talk about what I like about the iPhone 10 and the new features. Two people actually told me that they only wanted to see two people actually told me that they only wanted to see or only wanted me to mention like new features of the iPhone 10 and not features that were new from my 6S. Yeah. But anyways, let's get into it. So number 10 is 120 hertz touch sensitivity. So don't get it wrong. It doesn't have a 120 hertz refresh rate, as you probably know. It has 120 hertz touch sensitivity, which can make the screen more responsive. Yeah. And actually, when comparing it to my dad's iPhone 8, it actually did feel like the screen was responding faster to my touch. Number 9 is tap to wake. So I feel like this feature is good. Like, I actually discovered that it was added because there was no longer a home button, and yeah, I really like this, and this feature is actually really good. And actually, I don't know, I'd find it useful, like, if your phone is lying flat on the table and it's harder to reach the home button or something, because you can turn it on by touching anywhere on the screen and not just the home button with the home button iPhones. Number 8 is better battery life. So, I was actually gonna say that in the Mr. Who's the Boss battery test, there was only a difference about 30 minutes between the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 8 Plus, which was the second longest according to the tests I've seen, or the second longest at the time of release. However, and it is worth noting they had them at a higher brightness. Due to them being at a lower brightness, it probably wouldn't make as much of a difference. But however, I do feel like sometimes even like a second or two of battery life can be good, because like if there's something you want to do and you're like if there's something you want to do and you think to yourself, in 1 second or so I'm gonna go plug my phone in, and that 1 second of battery life can be good because in that scenario it'll be able to let you do what you want to do before plugging in your phone. Number 7 is a better telephoto lens. Okay, alright, so, as you can see here, we're in my room and there's a light. And actually, I mean, y'all might not know this, but the telephoto lens doesn't always work. I was actually gonna say that on the 7 Plus and 8 Plus, it had an f2.8 aperture with no OIS, whereas on the iPhone 10, it had an f2.4 aperture, which means it could work in more low light conditions with optical image stabilization, which could make the telephoto lens photos less shaky. So, so since we're in a good amount of light, I think it'll work. Let me see here. Okay, actually, it's not working right now. So there's still a good amount of even lit situations where it won't work. Yeah. But however, I know on the iPhone 7 Plus, it required a lot of light. I don't have a 7 Plus or 8 Plus, so we can't compare it. But however, yeah, I mean, it's not working, and actually, as you can see here, I am getting closer to the light, but for whatever reason, it's not working. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna clean off the lenses. So, yeah, so maybe we can, so, maybe that's the problem. Maybe the blur on the lenses isn't causing it to, work well. Okay, alright. So, as you can see here, there's no, okay, alright. Yeah, it isn't working. I'm actually going to turn up the brightness of my light here. Okay, that's only dimming it. Maybe it was already at max brightness. Okay, there. I think this is max brightness. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I was testing it earlier to see when it would work, and I'm actually going to keep the light out. And now, yeah, as you can see there, since there's more light, it does require a good amount of light still, as I mentioned earlier, but it still is an improvement since the 7 Plus I think requires like a lot of light. Yeah, so and yeah, I mean, as you can see here, it's still working, and yeah, and yeah, it's not working now as my finger's over the telephoto lens, and it still shows the digital zoom. And actually, I was gonna say, about the while like I said, it still needs improvement, I feel like there are a good amount of times when it worked just now, when it wouldn't have worked, earlier. Let's see, okay, alright, so it's working right now. I'm actually gonna see if I can see a loss of quality here. You know what, I think I see it shifted, and I think I do see a loss of quality due due to it being zoomed in. Let's go back and see if we can regain that quality. Okay, alright. Yeah, maybe I can, I don't know. To be honest, it does look a little bit worse here than there. Like it looks more pixelated, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And, yeah, that's it. Okay, I was actually gonna say that the reason why that reason wasn't higher on the list was, as y'all saw there, it didn't always work. Or the telephoto lens didn't always work. Number 7 is, number 6 is attention awareness. So I particularly like this whenever it comes to, whenever I'm watching a video, because I can still have the auto lock on the low amount, and, but it still won't turn off if I'm looking at the screen, which I do think is nice. Number 5 is haptic feedback for Face ID. When you unlock a phone, whenever you unlock the phone or make a purchase with Face ID, there will and it's successful, there will be this nice feeling of haptic feedback, which I do like. Yeah. Number 4 is a better screen. So actually, I feel like I have noticed the better screen. It does feel sharper as it's 458 ppi compared to 326 ppi on the 4.7 models, and 458 versus 401 ppi compared to the 5.5 models. And actually comparing it to my dad's iPhone 8, it did look a lot better. I'm not sure if I noticed these things, but there's also a much higher contrast ratio at 1,000,000 to 1 compared to 1,400 to 1 on the 4.7 models, and 1,300 to 1 on the 5.5 models. And there's an OLED screen, which I do feel like looks nice. Oh yeah, and about the battery test, or about the battery life, I feel like maybe it could be a little bit longer than 30 minutes, given the fact that I sometimes use dark mode, which does make it, which using dark mode does save battery life on OLED screens and not LCD screens. Yeah. I actually haven't really noticed the HDR, but I guess I'm fine with that. And actually, the HDR video doesn't always work. It only works on like videos with a lot of color, which I'm fine with that, I guess. Anyways, let's move on. Number 3 is a more accessible flashlight on the lock screen. So on the iPhone 10 and later, you're able to access the flashlight on the lock screen without having to swipe up to the control center, which I do think is nice. And yeah. And whenever you reboot your phone, before unlocking it, you are able to still access the flashlight, which I do think is nice. I'm glad that Apple finally added that. Number 2 is swiping between apps. So as you can see here, you can swipe between apps, which I do think is nice. It leads to better multitasking, as you see there. Yeah. And, actually, often in my reason, or sometimes in my reasons why a certain Android phone is better than a certain iPhone, I often list split screen multitasking, which I do feel like it would be nice if it had split screen. But however, the fact that you can swipe between apps does make me care a little bit less about split screen multitasking. The number 1 feature, which I'm sure you can probably guess what it is the all-screen design. So this thing has an all-screen design, 5.85 inches, with barely any bezels and a notch, which actually the notch doesn't look as bad as I thought it would be. I'd still like it if it was smaller, like on the OnePlus 6T. Yeah, but however, it's, which is significantly bigger than the 4.7 and 5.5 inch iPhone's screens. Anyways, I'm also going to mention a few more things about it. So I was actually going to say Face ID works better than expected. I guess the people that were saying Face ID was slow was when it was running iOS 11, because iOS 12 and maybe iOS 13 improved speeds for Face ID, which I do think is nice. And thinking about it, this is a first-gen Face ID. If I was using a second-gen or third-gen Face ID, I really wonder what it would be like on those phones. And there was one other thing. I was gonna say that that on the iPhone 10, the speakers are a little bit quieter, as you'll see here. So I actually wasn't able to show you, yeah. But, I think it's due to the, smaller front-facing speaker, because actually I read that the, Pixel 3 XL, due to its notch, has worse speakers than the Pixel 3, because it has a smaller front-facing speaker. But anyways, the audio actually does feel really loud, yeah, so it's not a terrible experience, and, yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave a like if you did, and have a good day. Bye!